Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I thought I would come on here and cover some questions and answers because I haven't done that for a while, so please put them in the comments below and I will cover them. Anything you want to ask me about OCD, if you just put it in the comments below, I will cover those now. Anything in relation to acceptance, harm OCD, POCD, ROCD, existential OCD, sensory motor OCD, magical thinking, anything, earworm, these are all branches off of sensory motor OCD, false memory, real event OCD, absolutely any aspect of OCD I will cover. Because what I was speaking to Momin about, who does a lot of work with our social media, he said, Rob, you've got to make sure that you include a lot more stuff on the specific themes. Now, I used to spend ages covering all the specific themes, but I've gone a lot more broad on sort of navigating the OCD recovery journey, acceptance, sort of the hurdles in recovery, motivation, inspiration, all these aspects of the recovery journey itself. And he said, Rob, you need to get on there and cover the specific topics. So that's what I'm going to do today. So anything you want to see covered, let me know. I just finished a workout about 10 minutes ago and I thought I'd come on here and do it Instagram Live. So that's why I'm sounding a little bit out of breath. Fear of the sensation of dying. A great video article that was written on this is by Phil, one of the mods. He covered in great detail all about the fear of death. He talks about his, he goes into detail about early onset dementia in his family, and he goes into talking about that and heart conditions and so on, and then how he came to accepting death. The one for me was the main game changer for me in relation to fear of death was specifically looking at Greek and Roman philosophy, particularly in the likes of Seneca the Younger, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, to name a few, who went into great detail all about looking at how death is like a sort of a shipwreck. We've got our life is this boat that we know is going to sink, and so that's the death. So we've got to enjoy and have a ball whilst we're on it. And that was very much what Albert Ellis said, because he also talks about the goal of life is just to have a ball. And that's the key thing to remember. It's just to have a ball, just to go about life thinking, I've got to live in the moment, do the best I can, and whatever happens, happens. Because we spend our whole lives thinking, oh my God, I've got to get everything perfect, my house perfect, my job perfect, and everything. And in the end, we're all dead. So it's about living in the moment, enjoying the moment, because only when we get to the future, as years pass, and we look back and think, God, that was a great moment, but in the time we were worrying about something else. So living in the moment's key. So for me, it was all about realizing that, well, like the Mark Twain quote said, well, we've been dead for sort of all eternity before we're born, and we're here for this blink of an eye in time. So that's never, I've been dead all this time. I'm just awake for this short period of time and then back to that. So it's not like there's this thing coming so terrifying. It's just like, that's the same position that we've been in. Well, not us, because we weren't even there. So it's when you start giving up control, it's all about giving up control, letting go of control. When you start doing that and working on that more and more and more, you realize bit by bit that it's a clinging to the known. That's like a Krishnamurti quote who says that humans aren't so much scared of death, they're scared of the known coming to an end. So it's to do with an internal control, wanting to have everything absolutely in position, all the safety, everything that we know, all being nice and safe, all feeling nice and comfortable, no dangers, no dramas. The same as the body. We often think, oh, we're completely safe in our house. Everything in our house is safe. Oh, I've got a roof here. I've got running water, electricity. All these things are nice. And whilst I'm in my house, I'm safe. Well, no, your body could have a disease. You could be dying, but we don't even know. And even if we get the test results saying we're fine, it could be in some very small cell that's about to start in some other area of the body. We have no idea. So we've got to live with the uncertainty. That's so key to recovery. What comes first and what should be treated at its root? Anxiety, panic, or sensory-motor OCD? You just want to look at, forget all the terms, because then it can often feel very complex. Just think of what are you specifically scared of and target that. Those questions, like voice for mental health, how common is it that sort of unsupported OCD results in psychosis? You're clearly scared of psychosis. The fear is psychosis, like the common fear of schizophrenia and so on. Your fear is psychosis, so you need to target that. Why that wouldn't be as scary as you imagine. Having a look at that specifically. There's quite a few videos on that, on schizophrenia, multiple personality and psychosis, sort of probably labelled as schizophrenia or OCD on our YouTube channel, so check that out. Just reading through your questions, give me 1 second. How do you do ERP for fear of your parents dying? That's another one that's a little bit, is a common fear, because it's about wanting your life all to be safe and everything to be fine. So with that particular fear, what happens is we like our environment, our house, our friends, our family to all be safe. And we sort of have this picture, oh my God, my parents die, I've known them my whole life, I won't be able to accept that happen. We could have had a grandparent die or whatever, or maybe it's the fear of losing unconditional love from the parent or whatever. So what actually happens here is we're so scared of losing that known thing. Again, it's the control thing. Known it all our life, that coming to an end. What if I can't handle it? What if it makes my OCD worse? All these variations of things, because what tends to happen with all this is we get very, very scared of being outside of a comfort zone. Parents represent that, so therefore losing that is a fear of, will I be able to manage? How bad will that be? Because we haven't experienced that. We often think, well, how bad could that actually be? Like, what could that be like? Because you see other people and then someone might say, oh, it was the worst thing in the whole world. Well, I tell you, and then other people say, yeah, well, it wasn't too bad, it wasn't great, but it felt very bad at first, but then I got used to it and so on. And you'll be like, oh my God, what if it's worse for me because I have OCD? But I want you to think of it like this. You've had OCD your whole, for however many years you're talking about here, you've had OCD, okay? So all that time that you've had OCD, you've managed. Your success rate is you're here. So you've survived every bad day, every bad moment, every bad thing that could have ever have possibly happened. You have survived all of that. All of that you've survived. So therefore, this situation with your parents, losing your parents or something, may be a bit scary, may not be, it will be, not feel great. We're pretty sure of that. It will maybe feel pretty scary at first, but your success rate's high. And we know other humans have been through all this stuff in their life, and we've seen them come through all this. So we know that the fact that they've come through all of this, we can come through this too. And that is so key, because what we tend to think is, how can we ever get over this thing if other humans who haven't got OCD find it difficult? Well, we get over things all the time. We're getting over living with OCD. We're getting over working with a job with having OCD. We're getting over things all the time. What do you think I thought when I first started working with OCD over a decade ago? I thought to myself, God, what's it going to be like? You're going to be working with people with OCD. What if you find it all too much, because it's quite a sort of a stressful disorder in terms of they ask loads of questions and a lot of pressure. What if that's all too much, managing them? What if all these different things came into my head, you know? And then when I actually approached it bit by bit, day by day, then the illusion of fear breaks down. But at first we think, oh my God, it's going to be the worst thing ever. Nothing could be ever worse. This is the most terrible thing that could ever happen in relation to the parents situation. Used to consume me so much, and I used to think, oh my God, what will I be like when that happens? It was one of my initial fears when I was younger. And then over time you get used to that more and more, and realize that as much as you love someone and would love that world to be with them in it forever, the world isn't isn't forever. We're not forever. None of these things are forever. And what makes the world magical and the experiences magical and exciting, so they're not like a roller coaster you're riding for the 1,000th time, is the fact that it's not forever. Right? You're experiencing new things. The first time you go on vacation, the first time you go on a date, the first time you go to a concert, the first time you have sex is new and exciting because it's new. I'm not talking about how great that particular experience may have been. I'm talking about the fact that things are new, the fact that things don't last forever. This is what adds that exciting factor. Now let's have a look at any more questions here. Hi Robert, this is from Christian. Hey Rob, how to target obsessive honesty and fear of lying? What examples especially? The main thing here is the belief. Like, why do you need to be 100% honest? Say you did tell a lie. This wouldn't be ideal, but there would be evolutionary advantages to telling lies. That's why we can lie. There's a film about that called The Invention of Lying, a great film by Ricky Gervais. And you can see that lies, often we tell white lies because they make situations easier in areas of our life. If somebody said, do you like my coat? And it's your friend and they're in front of you, you're not going to necessarily say it's absolutely terrible. You might say, yeah, it looks good. That sort of helps us get along through life. But it's about learning that. So exposure for that would be telling a few lies and getting used to that and getting used to that discomfort, because that feels so scary until we actually do that and see, hey, the world doesn't end. Hey, I can still accept myself even if I did tell a lie. It wouldn't be ideal, it's not what I agree with and I want, but if I do, the world doesn't end and I'm a fallible human being that can make mistakes. Just going through your questions. Any more questions you want to ask me about OCD? OCD, anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, anything like that, panic attacks, you can ask me here and I will cover those. Before anyone asks, this isn't a tripod. This is my phone balanced here on something propped up, so I'm not having to hold it, because that is what has given me so many neck problems. And I'm sure Nick, who's one of our mods on the YouTube channel, would tell me that is not a good thing to do, always holding the phone. And because I just finished that workout, I can feel it in my neck, so I'm sort of standing straight. And so I've got to remember to put my phone there. But I can accept if I get an injury, and I can accept that it's not always the most helpful. And I can also, there's a pain management point there, which is very important. Because I've got a bulging disc in my thoracic, in the thoracic spine, the disc is bulging there. I used to get a lot of pain with it. It was so bad, and a lot of that was psychological, because OCD had latched to that, like, this pain's so bad, you're never going to get over this pain's consuming your whole life, you can't just distract yourself, it's so bad, it's so terrible. OCD like made that pain like 1,000 times worse. Now people don't realize that. It's like, especially with back pain, it like zooms in and it's like, no, it's really bad. And then like I could barely stand. But when I was distracted and not thinking about it, it wasn't that bad. But like with that pain, look, don't get me wrong, the injury was really bad when I did it. I could barely even move my head like that and that. But a large amount of it was to do with our perspective of pain. And we know that's the case because you see people come back from war zones where they're in the helicopter flying away, and the pain that they had on the ground when they didn't think they were going to freedom felt completely different, because of how we process pain into what it means to us, or does it bring hope, does it bring danger, all different things. Where can I find out about all the different subtypes of OCD? You don't need to know all the different subtypes of OCD. Think of OCD as just, it can latch to different thoughts. It's going to latch to sort of things with a responsibility element, harm elements, and loss of things that mean a lot to ourselves. So it tends to grab onto all those things. You don't need to know all themes. You don't need to become an expert on themes. You know, there's so many variations of themes and new little words that the community comes up with that suddenly spring about. You're not going to be up to date. I'm not going to be up to date with every word the week it comes out or whatever. So you don't need that. I have a massive fear of being spiked. That was actually one of my fears, Hayden James there. That was actually one of my fears, to the point that it got so ridiculous that I was about 22 and I thought my drink was spiked in a pub at 1 o'clock in the day when there was only 2 people in it and I was holding beer. It absolutely seems nuts, but its OCD latches to it, makes it convinced, what if you turned your head? What if you did this? And so it then throwing away every single drink. And it was what? The odds of me being spiked was low, but to me it was it was real and had just happened, and it would just be doing that. Or it can also latch to the fear of what if you've done it to somebody and then forgotten it. That's another one. It comes through with the harm angle. Any other questions you want to ask me, drop them in the comments below. I will cover them now. I'm here to cover all your OCD questions. As someone said to me today in a one-to-one session, they said, with our YouTube channel, we do a lot of free content in terms of lots and lots of videos instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos and then sign up to our course. We don't run anything like that. We do as much free content as we can to help change OCD, as many questions as answered we can in the Facebook groups and on these Instagram lives. We do offer one-to-one coaching, group coaching webinars if you want to come to them, but most of the stuff that we're doing on social media is done free so that people can get access to information on OCD wherever they are in the world. And we're trying to break down that language barrier by bringing out all these new, all our videos all translated so people can get access to that for free. Advice for OCD about killing family members. That will come under Harm OCD. There's some great videos in our Harm OCD playlist on the YouTube channel. If you check that out and go into that playlist, we've covered this pretty extensively. So on the broader questions that come up on these Instagram lives, it's better to check the YouTube channel playlist categories, because they cover those in all different, they cover all of those points, like what is OCD, what is Harm OCD, what is RSD, all that kind of stuff. And so if you go on there, that will give you a good breakdown. Do we need to be formally diagnosed with OCD to use resources? No, you don't have to be formally diagnosed to read YouTube channels, watch YouTube channels, go in the Facebook group and learn about OCD. It's fear. You know, if you're scared of something, it all applies exactly the same. Something like 60 to... I'm not going to quote a statistic because I'll get it wrong and then someone will say I've got it wrong. So a large number of people that have got OCD don't know, that weren't diagnosed with OCD. It's usually very obvious that we've got OCD by the fact of the nature of this obsessing, compulsing. But you can get a diagnosis, and we do say that if people want to know that they've got OCD, they can go and get a diagnosis, and we encourage that. But be careful if you get a diagnosis, for fear that what if it isn't OCD, and what if they've got it wrong, you're not going back for test after test after test. Please tell best supplements for OCD. In relation to all medication and stuff like that, speak to your doctor about your OCD, same as the diagnosis. Go and speak to your doctor about diagnosis for OCD. But in relation to vitamin supplements, you see this online all the time at the moment. Things like top 10 best vitamins for OCD. Forget it. If there was a great vitamin that cured OCD, we would be talking about it all the time. And look, I used to write lots of things on nutrition, and I've done that for a long time. I used to own a gym, and I used to write for Men's Fitness and Men's Health magazine. And I can tell you, if there was a supplement that brought about amazing results for OCD, I would be covering it all the time. So there isn't. There's things that can help aid anxiety symptoms, but the best thing, obviously, that we know is medication from the doctor, and the key thing, learning to change your perspectives and your irrational beliefs, and changing your relationship with OCD, and that brings about where you can't feel you've got OCD, where you have got internal peace, like my experience here now. There's no OCD thoughts, no intrusive thoughts that are hammering away, no chronic guilt, no chronic anxiety. It isn't there. There's an internal peace as a default setting. And that's through changing my beliefs, working on my perspectives, all of that kind of stuff. So vitamins, look, people are going to want to sell you stuff online. They're going to want to advertise vitamins. Companies are going to get people to advertise their vitamins, and you'll see it all the time. There is no vitamins that I've ever seen where someone's come in with chronic severe OCD, taking a vitamin and being like, yeah, I'm 30-40% better. I've never seen it, but you're gonna see it on social media because people are selling them, and because it kind of sounds cool and trendy to talk about them, and it's a nice easy sort of fix of I take this vitamin and so on. Forget it. It's nearly as bad as that thing I heard about celery juice, where someone was talking about drink celery juice to cure OCD. I mean, I can't even believe that these things exist and how people even believe in them. So that stuff will happen. Emma. Now my partner is working from home, I realise how I help reassurance from him was. I feel like my checking is so bad at the moment. Reassurance, you've got to treat it like a drug. You've got to treat it like an addiction. You've got to say to yourself, I do not want to seek reassurance anymore because it's never delivered me a result that's ever brought long-term relief. It's always been short-term. So you want to really focus on that and think, if I want to change my life, if I want to change my life now, I've got to get off this drug of reassurance. Now, some people will often say, oh, a little bit of reassurance isn't too bad. That is absolutely ridiculous. How can a little bit of the drug, it's like going to rehab and saying, yeah, listen, do you mind if I bring some coke into this rehab centre because a little bit helps me get through things? They're going to say no way. So giving someone a bit of an understanding about OCD, okay, you're going through this for this reason, so it helps them calm down, helps them understand a bit. It's not necessarily going to calm down, obviously, because that would mean that thing delivers the long-term result, which it doesn't. So a little bit of understanding initially about what's going on and why that's the situation, and then you can't go with a reassurance position. If there's therapists that are watching this live, you've really got to be strict with that reassurance situation, because OCD sufferers are very good at convincing you that just this once, just this situation, I need to know this thing. But you've really, really got to think about it seriously. It doesn't get you better. And if you're doing it, it's taking it, that reassurance is sacrificing you recovering quicker. So you've got to really think about that. You really need to think, what do I want? What are my goals? What am I trying to change this year that I haven't changed other years? If I want to get better from OCD, if I want to move closer to my goals, reassurance is one of the top things on the list we want to be stopping. Yeah, I have to be direct with reassurance, because if I'm not, it happens. And I could go to so many places where people are helping people with OCD, and I could walk in that room and I could say, look, you've just told that person that their thoughts are the last thing that they think they are 10 times in the first 15 minutes. That's reassurance. Like if you go in our Facebook groups and you just see it all the time. Oh, I've been going to such person, they've been reassuring me the whole way, but I kind of wanted it a bit, so I kind of allowed it. That ain't going to help you. You've got to be serious. It's like if you're an alcoholic and you go out with friends who don't know you're an alcoholic, and they say, look, here's a beer, and then you say, I don't want to drink. They're like, oh, everyone has a drink. They don't know your situation, that you're an alcoholic. So obviously you can make that situation work towards addiction by going, yeah, okay, I'll have one beer. Oh, it's not too bad. I'll just one or two. That's what everyone does. And it's the same with reassurance. You've got to think of it like that. You've got to think, and you've got to be aware of it. And you've got to think of all the ways you get into it. Look, think about it like this. When people talk to me in one-to-ones, and I did this, right? I did this. If someone speaks to me and asks me questions about OCD, sometimes the question's not reassurance, but the tone of voice is reassurance, in the sense that it's like, do you think that, Rob? What do you think? What about? And then, or just a change in tone, up, down, like that. And they're doing that to get an answer, to get that little drip-feeded dose of reassurance. So that's how subtle it is. It can just be through tone. So my job is to really be aware of that tone, really be aware of how that's trying to come in. And I can see this all day long in places trying to help people with OCD. If they don't understand that, like, you don't realize the tone here is actually giving reassurance, or the way you're nodding your head is actually giving them reassurance, where you're sort of going like that a bit, like, yeah, that's okay, you're doing well with that thing. Because people are going to be scared of being stuck forever and fear of fears. So they'll be like, do you think I'm doing this right? Am I? And they'll be like that, and that's a reassurance, but they're not even aware of it. So you've got to be really strict on it, okay? You've got to be strict on it. I can't emphasize it enough. When I came to build our Facebook group, I thought the first thing I've got to change is how OCD groups have been for years. Rampant places for reassurance all day long, and people just reassuring each other left, right, and centre. So I thought I've got to come in, and avoidance is exactly the same. Avoidance and reassurance. Avoidance in the sense of avoiding something you're scared of, for example. For example, if you're scared of getting HIV, then of never having sex or something like that. Avoidance is the same. It's got to be taken very seriously. It never brings results. Okay. Now, in our Facebook group, we knew there would be loads of avoidance, loads of reassurance, so we wanted to change that, and that's something that we worked really, really hard on doing. But avoidance is exactly the same. People avoiding ever going to doctors for fear of hearing bad news. People with OCD sufferers often think, oh, they're going to be going to the doctor all the time. No, it can be the reverse. It can be whatever the fear is at the core, they will just change their life around it to make sure everything works to bring the least anxiety. So it could be avoiding the doctors, avoiding relationships, avoiding holidays. That was a big one that I often used to do. Think, shit, I need to get out of this holiday straight away last minute because of ... All kinds of things, like maybe I had this ear infection a month ago and then thinking, oh my God, if I go on a plane, I'm going to blow an eardrum, so I'll cancel my whole holiday. All kinds of things like that used to latch into. That's what it does. It's so sneaky of the ways it comes in, and it's subtle. And even that I know I have OCD. Look, genetically, I don't suffer from OCD, but genetically, I have OCD. And people who tell you, oh, you can cure it and it goes, and don't understand it. Most of the research supports that it's most likely genetic, and it's not something that just goes. So because you can see how that cycle starts up again if you don't watch out for it, being aware of it. Same as an alcoholic who's now sober is aware that he could still slip up by drinking or so on. But it's very convincing, the same with alcoholism, where you think, oh, I've been free for ages, I can go and have a drink. Whenever I speak to people that are alcoholics and they say, oh, you know, I've been sober for a long time and now I'm thinking of just having one drink and I think I'll be all right, Rob. And I'm like, I don't really suggest that. I don't think that, although I don't suffer from that, I can see how it works in the pathways of the brain. OCD is the same. You need to be very aware. Look, you've got OCD, and you've got to be aware of that, because being aware of that then helps you to see where it's trying to pull you off direction. But like, I can notice sometimes I think, oh, it's tried to get me in this angle, which I hadn't even spotted was OCD before I'd registered it, and then there wasn't a problem. That doesn't happen very often, but I'm saying it's subtle. It's very subtle. You won't be able, it often appears like reality because it's in your brain. You can't see your head. If you had your head in front and you sort of saw your brain, and we could highlight it with some electric thing and then say, there's OCD, you believe it, but we still kind of don't believe it, and we still think, well, how do other humans think? And this is how I think, so this seems like this is the real way to think, or so on, and this isn't OCD. I could tell. You can't see it. The same as an alcoholic can't see that even when they're sober, that they're likely to start drinking again at any point. They can't see that, so we get convinced by the sensation of calmness we feel at that moment, and that's how we get caught with backdoor spikes. I was feeling calm and now I feel this thing, or I feel this sensation. Does that mean it's real? I wasn't anxious, I wasn't chronically guilty. Does that mean it's real? All of that stuff is how it comes in and tries to sneak its way in. Guys, great to be on here doing Instagram Live. I'll be back up here doing another Instagram Live in the next day or two, maybe tomorrow. And so I will see you guys all then. Take it easy.